Laughter filled the subway car, but in just a few minutes, everyone would fall silent. New York's morning rush hour was absolute chaos. The subway was packed. People had their headphones in, eyes glued to their phones, eager to get to their destinations. Some looked out the window with tired eyes while others scrolled mindlessly. No one had any idea that they were about to witness something unforgettable. As the subway doors slid open, an old man stepped inside. His clothes were worn out, his coat patched in several places, and his shoes barely holding together. His hair was disheveled, and his beard was unevenly grown. He looked like someone who had seen better days. He slowly made his way to the middle of the subway car. A group of young passengers noticed him immediately and burst into laughter. "Wow, did he just walk out of a history textbook?" One of them joked. "Hey, Grandpa, what century are you from?" Another teased. "Look at those rags. Guess fashion isn't your thing, huh?" Other passengers shifted uncomfortably. Some felt sorry for the man, but no one dared to speak up. But the old man didn't react. He didn't look angry, hurt, or even annoyed. Instead, he quietly reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a crumpled envelope. And at that moment, the entire atmosphere in the subway changed. With trembling hands, the old man carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a faded, yellowed letter. The edges were worn, carrying the weight of many years. The laughter died instantly. The old man lifted his eyes slowly. They were filled with sorrow. "This paper might mean nothing to you," he said in a low voice, "but this letter changed a man's life." The young men who had been laughing moments ago were now silent. Some looked away in embarrassment, while others watched the old man with curiosity. He unfolded the letter gently and began to read. His voice was steady, yet heavy with age and experience. "Dear Mr. Thomas Williams, it is with great honor that we inform you that you have been awarded the Medal of Honor by the President of the United States." The entire subway car froze. No one made a sound. One of the young men lowered his head, his face turning red with shame. Just moments ago, they had mocked a war hero. The rest sat in stunned silence, realizing the weight of the moment. The old man took a deep breath and ran his fingers over the letter. This wasn't just ink on paper. It was a symbol of sacrifice, bravery, and a lifetime of memories. Passengers who had once ignored the scene now sat in complete stillness. A few lowered their heads in guilt. One of the young men who had laughed just minutes earlier swallowed hard, regret written all over his face. For the first time that morning, the subway car was truly silent. The old man slowly looked up at the young men, his gaze piercing but kind. There was no anger in his eyes, only wisdom. "This uniform, this medal, they don't define me. I know who I am. But tell me, do you know who you are?" One of the young men swallowed hard, his voice shaky. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know." The old man gave a small nod, his expression understanding. "It's all right, son. Sometimes we don't see the truth until we're forced to." For a moment, no one spoke. The subway car was filled with an unusual stillness, a weight of realization settling over the passengers. A woman sitting near the back reached into her purse and pulled out a small American flag. "My father was a soldier too. He never spoke much about his time in the war, but he carried his pain with him every day," she said, offering the flag to the old man. The old man looked down at the flag, then slowly took it in his hands. He carefully folded it and placed it inside his coat. "Thank you," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "but the real thanks belongs to those who never made it home." Several passengers bowed their heads. This wasn't just his story. It was the story of countless forgotten heroes. A young man hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a few dollar bills. He gently placed them in the old man's hand. The old man looked down, then smiled faintly and patted the young man's shoulder. "I don't need this, but one day, help someone else who does." The young man lowered his gaze, feeling a lesson settle deep into his heart. That day, it wasn't just one man who had changed. Every person in that subway car would leave a little different than when they entered. The subway slowed as it approached the next stop. The old man carefully folded his letter, placing it back inside the envelope, and let out a quiet sigh. The young men sat in silence, their shame evident. They exchanged glances but said nothing. Words weren't needed. Other passengers, who had remained on the sidelines, now looked at the old man with admiration. He had spoken louder with his silence than most people could with 1,000 words. The train came to a stop. The old man slowly stood up, straightened his coat, and took one final look around the subway car. His expression was calm, his eyes filled with understanding. "Remember what you learned today." The doors slid open, and he stepped off the train. The passengers watched him go, a newfound respect in their eyes. As the doors closed, one of the young men let out a deep breath. Another rubbed his hands together nervously. "Man, I feel like an idiot," one of them whispered. "Yeah," another replied. "We all do." But none of them would ever forget what happened that morning. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. What would you have done in this situation? Tell us in the comments below.